Welcome to this week's episode of the Dudefax podcast. Four guys united by their love for Jesus, coffee, and corny jokes come together to talk about culture, life, and ministry. So grab a cup of joe, sit back, and relax. This week's episode starts now.
Well, good day, mate. Put another shrimp on the barbie. No, we're not Australian, Austrian, or from New Jersey. We are the dudes from the Dudefax podcast, and only half of us are here today.
Yep.
I don't know where the other guys are. I mean, I think they're just playing hooky.
Yeah, they all had like excuses, like things that adults do that apparently are important.
Yeah, apparently they aren't as dedicated as we are to this podcast. Josh is doing like VBS. He's not a kid. He doesn't have kids. Why does he need to be at VBS?
Although I do just now have the mental picture of him being a kid at VBS, which is...
Yeah. He might be getting a pie in the face
really
or something
me.
as we speak. Josh may end up getting here tonight. There's an outside chance. Mm-hmm. If he doesn't show up, he at least might insert himself in a video later when he edits this. So Josh will not be here. Grant will not be here. Definitely.
Yes.
And I really don't know what he's doing. I think he just didn't feel like it tonight. So
he's just he had band practice.
Oh, band practice. Yeah, band. Who's in a band?
Who needs to practice?
Yeah, come on.
I don't practice. I just show up.
That's right.
Here to play. Let's go.
Well, tonight we're going to talk about having a biblical worldview and getting outside of our bubble. And we're going to answer the question, what does a biblical worldview look like? And when we talk about bubble, what I mean is thinking through the importance of gaining a perspective and appreciation for our spherical world that God created outside of our small little piece of it. That was specifically for Jay, if he's listening. But Ryan and I are going to swap some stories about the time that we flew halfway across the world. We flew west to go east through San Francisco to get to China, which is in the east. Because the earth is round, shocker. And talk about our experiences in the country of China. And we had some experiences there, funny experiences, wild experiences. I think it did obviously shape our worldview a little bit and got us outside our bubble. But before we get into that discussion, speaking of airplanes, I have a rant. And this is, I keep trying to reach for my couch. It's further away than it usually is. We've sort of had this segment on the show where, I don't know if it's an official segment, but I've been egged on by certain topics where I just rant about certain things. And we can call it Jeff sweating the small stuff or the ranting chap, whatever we want to call it. But I've ranted about people who back into parking spaces. I've ranted about not putting your shopping cart back in the corral. Like people at Walmart that just put all their groceries in the car and then leave the shopping cart out in the middle of the parking lot. How ridiculous that is. Today, I want to rant about people that get up as soon as the airplane lands and we pull up to the gate. Are you one of these people, Ryan?
Yes and no.
Oh, no.
I think it's ridiculous to stand up immediately, but sometimes if I do have an aisle seat, especially if it's a long flight, I'll stand up and stretch my legs a little bit. But
that's respectable.
Yeah. But it's the people that kill me are the ones that get up and they're already like, people that are like window seats and they're like, "Oh, I got to get up and I got to get my bag out." It's like, "Hold on. Like you put your bag like 3 or 4 rows up. Like you're not getting out to get your bag yet."
Exactly.
It's going to be forever before we get out of here.
And that's part of this rant is it's okay to, especially if it's been a long flight, like we've gone to China. I mean, that's a long flight. You might want to sort of stretch a little bit, stand up, especially if you're in the aisle. And so I'm not meaning people that take their seatbelt off and kind of stretch a little bit when the plane lands. I can understand that. What I'm talking about are those who rush to get up when the plane lands and pulls to the gate, and they immediately start clogging the aisles, racing to the front, opening up the overhead compartments, and getting all their bags. And this just annoys me. It annoys me for a few reasons. One, there's absolutely no sense in rushing.
Nope.
They're not going to open the door right away. So why are you rushing to the front of the door?
At least another 15 minutes before you get off that plane.
For real. I mean, they got to do like paperwork or something.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing up there.
They're just sitting and
taking
waiting.
a head count.
Yep. One, you still got to go to baggage claim, which takes like another 15 minutes. So you're going to race down there. It's like the person who speeds around you only to get caught at the same red light that you're on. I mean, that's annoying as well. But yeah. Secondly, not one person on the plane is more important than everyone else. And I think that's what annoys me more than anything. It's that people have this idea that they are more important, that they are more in a hurry than I am. Look, we all have places to go. All of us are on the plane. We all think the guy next to us has bad breath and we want to get away from him. We all have heard the crying baby and we're tired of it. We want to get off this plane. But be a decent human being and wait until it's your turn to leave.
Yes.
I mean that's all I want to say. I don't want to hear crap about, I need to catch a connecting flight. If that's a problem, you should have planned better. That's my thought. I mean, your lack of planning does not constitute an emergency on my part, as it's said.
Man, honestly, that's your fault for picking a flight plan that had a connecting flight.
For real. I mean, if you're flying into Atlanta and you have a 45-minute layover, you're going to miss that flight.
Yeah.
There's no sense in trying to rush off the plane to try to catch your flight from Atlanta to Houston because you've already missed it. As soon as you got in the air, you missed it.
Yep.
So,
well, honestly, so if I could offer a couple pro tips for flying, first one, pick a flight plan that either doesn't have any stops or has stops, but you don't get off the plane.
Yes.
Like those are the preferable ones. Second, if you're flying domestic for anything less than a week, learn how to pack light and put it all in your carry-on. You don't need a 50-pound bag that you check and have to worry about, if the plane's going to lose it or they're going to cut into it with a knife at security or something. Who knows? But
no, that's true too. Are you one of those people that puts your stuff in the overhead compartment and just like takes forever to put it up there and digs around?
No, I usually have a backpack and a messenger bag, and the backpack I immediately just throw up in the overhead, and the messenger bag goes in the seat with me.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Very rarely do I put anything in the overhead compartment. Yeah. Most of the time it's a backpack in my seat, but it drives me nuts. I always seem to get next to somebody who, has their bag up there, and then 2 or 3 times during the flight they have to get something out of it.
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
it's like, come on,
bring the extra one that you can carry in your seat with you. Like, you don't need to get in and out of your bag during the flight, especially if you're flying from Atlanta to Nashville.
Yeah, it's not that far. I mean, you got to bring your cowboy boots.
You'll be all right.
Cowgirl boots, whatever. But yeah, don't be a turd. I mean, that's all I'm trying to say. I mean, you might say, well, what if there was a delay and I legitimately have to catch a flight? Well, if that's the case, which I'm sure happens, it's happened to me, talk to the flight attendants, talk to the airline, do something to sort of help yourself. I mean, they've taken people on carts before from the terminal to the next terminal. If it's really that much of a dire situation, talk to the airline. Don't rush up to the front and push everybody out of your way, because who knows, everybody else on that plane may have an emergency.
Right.
And they've got to go catch a flight too.
You know that if it's that quick, that short of a time constraint, if it's not like you've already missed the flight and there's nothing they can do, they can call ahead and tell them to hold the plane because somebody just got in and their flight came in late or something like that. Though.
And then they can go be that annoying person who shows up last on the plane and then has to sit in like a middle seat. And by the way, they got to cram their giant bag in the overhead compartment, but there's no room left by their seat. So they have to walk back like 12 seats.
Their bag that's probably too big to be a carry-on anyways.
Yes, that barely fits in the overhead compartment.
They're having to stuff in there. You got the flight attendant that's just like taking 30 minutes to try and stuff it in there.
And what that means is when they land on their next flight, then they've got to walk back 12 rows, get their bag.
Yep.
And they're going to be one of those people that gets up right away and goes and gets their bag while everybody else is trying to get up. I mean, there should be no reason you're passing people whenever you're getting off the plane. I think it's ridiculous. And I also think you're making the situation more stressful.
Yeah.
When you get up and you try to hurry, then other people think, oh, I got to get up and I gotta hurry. It's almost like it's a contagious behavior, and the aisles get clogged, and all of a sudden people are going nuts and trying to bolt their way to the front. So
yeah, people are easy to panic and scare. They're kind of like, small animals.
Oh yeah,
when they're in groups.
That's right. You heard it here first. Ryan says people are small animals.
Yes.
So
scientifically.
I do think people should be fined and slapped with a flaming hot noodle if they cut to the front of the line. And if you're the people that rush so fast that you pass people instead of just letting the row in front of you go before you, I think you need to be flogged. You're not a decent human being. You belong locked up away from society.
Yeah.
I'm actually a huge fan of giving a test for certain privileges in society. Like my daughter is going to be driving in a couple of months. She's got to take a driver's test for the privilege of driving. Yeah. I think we need to take certain decent human being tests for you to be able to do stuff like flying an airplane.
Or just to have the privilege to go out in public with other people.
Yes. I mean, lines in general drive me nuts. I mean, I just went to an amusement park when I went to Universal.
The worst.
People don't even know how to use those lines.
Nope.
And then don't even get me started on the fast pass people. That drives me nuts. I mean, just because you paid extra should not mean that you're better than me. That's a rant for another day. But, when we went to China, remember the lines there, or the queues, as they call them?
I remember the lack of lines to get on buses.
As soon as the bus stopped, there was no line at the bus stop, single file into the door. It was a mob.
You just shove your way in there. And we had several, younger, smaller people with us. So,
we did.
I was constantly in fear for their lives.
We thought we were going to lose them. Yeah, it made me feel a lot better when I was working in seminary at the music library on campus. We called it Little Korea because there were so many Korean students. And I remember them coming into the library and not really making lines. You'd have somebody that you were working with, and they would just cut in front of that person and immediately start talking to you. And I remember thinking it was so rude. But then going to some Asian countries like China, I thought, this is how they operate over here. Yeah. They don't have lines. It's sort of everybody for themselves.
Yeah. So. They operate their roadways the same way.
Yep. And that's how a lot of people operate on an airplane.
Yep.
And it's funny because I hear people all the time complaining about this same thing and ranting about people that get up. But I still see half the plane get up early whenever we stop. And it never fails. Everybody's like, I got to go.
It never fails. I don't understand. Like I said, I will get up and stretch my legs if I'm in a center seat. But when I'm in the aisle seat and then someone is trying to get over me to get out because they're sitting at the window, I'm like, can we just calm down?
Yeah.
I don't understand. Because if I'm in that situation, when I'm in a window seat, I'm like, I'm just sitting here. Yep. I leave my headphones on. I'm watching whatever, downloaded thing I'm watching off of Netflix. I'm like, we're going to sit here for a little while. I got some time.
It does give me a sense of satisfaction sitting on the aisle seat, and the other two people can't get up and move until I do. And so I'm one who sits until it's my turn to go. Nope. And I can tell sometimes they're sitting there just antsy.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I wish this guy would get up. And I'm just like, so, yeah. All right, those are my rants. Those are my comments. We want to get to your rants and comments because we had a lot of them this week. So many that we cannot even begin to read them all because we had 100 plus comments.
We'll be here for an hour just on comments
on our flat Earth discussion. But what rants and comments, Ryan, do we want to highlight this week?
So I want to highlight a couple of older comments. So
a little music. Sorry.
I want to highlight a couple older ones. So on the flat Earth talk, comments on our posts. We've had a couple posts over the past few weeks, not just our last episode about flat Earth. So I want to bring up. I'll start with the original. So this person, unapologetic patriot for Christ, said God is science. America! Yeah. He said God is science. So ... I don't know if he just forgot what the rest he was going to say was, but
Or he was dropping the mic. God is science. Boom. We need a mic dropping sound effect.
But so underneath this, I believe our Dudefax account, which I believe was Jeff, replied, said, "I'd say God is love. He's way bigger than science." And the person who responded to this is who I want to highlight. Their name was Newfoundland Bear Pig.
Yes.
Which just brings up some great mental images of a bear pig.
I want to see this thing.
Yeah.
The famous bear pig from Newfoundland.
My question is it more pig or bear? Does it have like fur, or is it more like hairless like a pig?
I hope it's a giant pig with fur.
Okay. A bear-sized pig with fur.
Yep.
And bear claws. So Newfoundland Bear Pig said, Oprah says God is love, and her teacher, John of God, which I have no idea who that is no one to follow. Earth is flat. Fast and pray for Yah to reveal the truth, and he will.
Jesus juke.
Or so he thought. That was the Jesus juke. We have no idea what you're saying, Newfoundland Bear Pig.
Yeah,
Pig
I think
bear,
that's a
it is.
common theme amongst a lot of our comments from this last week's. So if you're not following us on TikTok, we had some heated discussion over
Scorching
the
hot.
flat Earth debate in the comments on TikTok, and I'll say Jay, you got some ideas out there. He was giving us all the skinny on the conspiracy of flat Earth.
Yes. I have some advice for you, Jay. If you're listening, listen well. You need to read a book other than Dr. Seuss, because everything you said was nonsense. So, yeah.
I think at one point he meant to say Satan and said Santa, which was one of my favorites.
I remember that one. I wasn't sure if he did mean Santa or Satan.
So that's the problem. It was so confusing.
'Cause he was
and,
talking about the North Pole.
It made no sense. You were like, does he really mean Santa? Like, he could. And you never know.
My favorite thing is I was commenting from the Dudefax one more seriously.
Yeah.
Trying to be loving and not a jerk. I was commenting from my personal one just being absolutely ridiculous. But I resorted to that only when the conversation got so ridiculous that I was like, I really can't reason with you from the Dudefax account.
No
so instead of being weird and a turd from Dudefax, I'll just do it from my personal one. And I think Jay just thought I was like some ignorant,
Rando
goofball, which I mean, maybe some truth, but
yeah. I thought it was funny. He started talking about he got as flat Earth conspiracy theorists always do. To justify the flat Earth conspiracy, there is another conspiracy on top of that conspiracy. So it's like compounding conspiracies with these people.
yes.
He brought up the New World Order, and I was really upset that I didn't reply to him and make a Hulk Hogan reference or something like that.
That's immediately what I thought. I was like, "Are you talking about wrestling now?"
Yeah. Is that the WCW over here in the New World Order?
The New World Order doesn't want us going to the North Pole, where the original Garden of Eden is located, apparently.
That's is that the New World Order, though? I think Triple H was a part of that.
Yeah, so Triple H, I'm just picturing him standing there. It's cold. He's in front of like a gingerbread house, and inside are contained all the secrets to flat Earth and the Garden of Eden. The tree, the original tree, is there in that in Santa's workshop.
Is it frozen? I don't know.
I'm confused.
I also wanted to point out he pointed us to some videos of pilots saying the Earth was flat. I watched several of these videos, and
you did better than me.
There were
didn't
pilots.
Make it that far.
There was some where they were like up in the cockpit, while flying the plane. They're like, "Oh, look out there, the Earth looks flat," and I'm like, "There's still a horizon. It's like you can't see just infinitely. Like it goes over at some point. Like." I don't understand. But yes, so all kinds of fun over there.
If you're a pilot and you think the Earth is flat, you've really got to be some kind of like warped, because how in the world? I mean, if you've been in the air, you could obviously see curvature. You obviously know, especially if you've flown overseas, that, you know, like we said, you fly west to go east, that it's round. I honestly believe either these are like people that have like mental instability, or they're lying and got paid to say what they're saying, because there's just no way.
And I don't think a handful of pilots saying that, because there are probably thousands of, hundreds of thousands of pilots out there, commercial airline pilots. I don't think a handful of them saying that is proof of anything.
I also picture these pilots to be like Randy Quaid from Independence Day. Yeah. That's the pilot that's saying this.
Never,
Up yours!
Never trust Randy Quaid with anything. And then I'll leave one last comment from B. Wilson 92 here on TikTok, giving us his crazy theory.
Yes.
It said, crazy theory, but if a seed ship was sent to Earth to start humanity from scratch, so that ship destroys the dinosaurs and allows the evolution of man as we know it today. Just a theory and an interesting thought. So
Pink and flicker.
I like it.
So they're just dropping thought pieces over there. So
Trying to drop some knowledge. They're dropping something. I mean, probably a dollop of something. And if I had that queued up, I could have played it, but it's all right. Oh, there we go.
That somebody left a turd on the bathroom floor.
All right.
Turd's name was Jay.
That's right. There you go, Jay. All right, Ryan, it's time for... Well, we don't have any more comments, do we?
No.
Okay. It's time for one of our favorite segments on the show called the Soda Sommelier. Yes. And today, I've got a drink for you. It is Dang.
Oh, dang.
It says, dang, that's good. And this is Italian cherry soda. Yeah, it's gluten-free. It's caffeine-free. This is the original Dang. So when I think of like Southern... because dang is like a Southern word in Italian, I think of this.
Buongiorno.
Yes, and that's Brad Pitt from that Quentin Tarantino movie that I won't say on air. But yeah, dang, this is what it is. And so Ryan is going to give this a whirl. I'll hand it to you.
I wonder if him saying buongiorno like that is the equivalent to an Italian person saying dang.
Dang.
Oh, I like that it's room temp. It's the best soda tasting temperature.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about refrigerating it for you.
We missed the crack.
Missed the shh.
And
Drink that dang
next time.
soda.
Dang. Dang.
Soda pop. Big fresh can of soda pop.
Yes. There's a lot of cherry in that soda.
Dang.
That's why they said dang. It's like dang. Some cherry there. It's good though. It tastes like a soda. I can taste the gluten freeness though.
Oh yeah.
It tastes better with gluten.
Yeah. Dang, you should have some gluten.
Get on it, dang.
Yeah, so Silas had one of those. We bought those at Rural King this weekend, and they also had dang like butterscotch root beer, which actually sounds pretty good too. So maybe we should have bought that and tried both. But Silas tried it in the back seat. He really liked it, but he also, I think sometimes, will drink stuff and not like it, but he's talked it up before he drank it, so he doesn't want to admit that he doesn't like it.
Yep.
Because after he took the first couple of swigs, they started getting slower, almost like, yeah, this is a little bit like too much cherry. So I don't know if it feels like that.
It's like the 15-year-old who's never actually drank coffee, but like all his friends talk about coffee, and he's like really wants to be in, and then the first time he has it, like, yeah, this is good.
Wait a second. All right, so Dang Cola. Any rating or anything on that?
Since it's an Italian cherry soda, I'm gonna give that 5 spaghetti noodles out of 13.
Buongiorno.
All right, that makes sense.
Speaking of doing sensual things with our mouths,
I think, when we try all these weird sodas, obviously we've been to parts of the world that have interesting sodas. One of our favorites out of all the Dudefaxers is a Puerto Rican soda called Coco Rico, which we still need to just have Coco Rico on the show, like all of us. I know Grant, I think's had one.
Oh yeah.
But all four of us need to have one night. And
I'm pretty sure I can just go down to Publix and get some now. Like they're pretty readily available.
Yeah. We did a Coco Rico wrap.
Yeah.
Right here.
We're talking about it straight out of the Caribbean.
That's how much we like Coco Rico. We we made an entire rap about it. So we've been privy to be able to travel around the world, and we're talking about worldview and expanding our worldview and what a biblical worldview is and getting outside our bubble. Part of that is trying different foods, drinks around the world. But specifically, as we're going to be talking stories from China, there was this drink that we all fell in love with in China, and it's not even Chinese, but for some reason, that's the first place I think we all encountered it. But it was Mirinda.
Yeah.
Mirinda, like orange soda.
Orange soda. And I think it's a Pepsi product, and I think it's just like their international orange soda. We just like happened upon it in China.
Yeah, we're used to Sunkist and Fanta, and for some reason Mirinda was like the drink everybody wanted when we were in China.
I tell you what, if you go back to 2008, the summer of 2008, and look at PepsiCo stock trends, I'm sure there was a big uptick the 2 weeks we were in China.
Yep.
Just we bought tons of those sodas.
All these people in Texas. Man, the Chinese really love their Mirinda.
Well, and like the exchange rate between U.S. and China was then and is now was just like $1 is just like you're rich over there with just like a couple bucks, and so I was just spending all kinds of yuan on.
You're spending like a quarter and getting
a
whole Mirinda. Like sweet, but I don't even remember it really tasting any differently than Sunkist or Fanta.
Yeah.
I'm wanting to say, now looking back, it's been like 15 years, that we were so starved for like something that tasted familiar as far as like soft drinks, because we didn't have much. It was like water there. That
hot water.
Yes. That by the time we tried this Mirinda, we're like, this is the greatest thing I've ever tasted in my life.
Yep. I think also too, like China was my first international experience. So we take air conditioning for granted in the United States.
Yes.
When you go to, even if you go to just like Europe, like another, place that we consider like, more farther along than others, air conditioning is just not a big thing in other places. And so we were in China, like if you look at the pictures of us, I was going through them the other night. We're just always sweaty. Doesn't matter what we're doing. I was like, so I think that we were just, constantly, anytime we get that, it was just like the most refreshing thing in the world, because we were just always humid and sweaty.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I remember that. I mean, it was hot over there, humid over there, and I mean, not only like refrigeration, but things like ice and you said air conditioning, but I meant refrigeration as well. All those things. Where we take for granted having it so readily available here in the States. But I think I looked it up, and it's actually I think it's actually more popular in Spain, Mirinda soda, or maybe a Spanish name. But,
and I think Josh has mentioned before that he had it in Africa.
Oh, okay.
So
if you're ever overseas somewhere, try a Mirinda, and maybe you'll fall in love with it just like we did. So, we're going to talk more about our experience in China, because this isn't an extenuation of our missions podcast that we did several weeks ago. This is really just one of those experiences that we've both had that I think opened our eyes to a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And as we talk about biblical worldview, we'll talk about the importance of that, but we're also going to talk about how we as Christians need to venture out of this bubble sometimes that we can easily create. And part of that is by being obedient to God and going on a mission, or even being obedient to God and doing something in your hometown that's outside your, and we'll talk more about that. But in that discussion, we're going to specifically talk some funny stories, some wild stories. And so we want you to stick around for the second half of the podcast because there's some great stories. So if you're one of those that only listens to the funny part, and you think, oh, this is the end of the funny part, I'll just stop here and not listen to part 2, you're going to miss like even more funny stuff.
Yeah.
So as we have a serious discussion, we're going to share a lot of funny things as well.
Well, it's just the two of us this week, so the fun never stops.
That's right.
Jeff.
And there's a special video that I'm going to show at the very beginning of part 2. Like a video you don't...
Ooh.
Well, we're going to show you a video of the thing that Ryan and I saw when we first stepped foot into Beijing, China in 2008. We're going to show a video of that, and you don't want to miss it because it is amazing. So thank you for being here. Go try some Dang soda, and we will see you right now. So go check out the second half.
Buongiorno.
Hey, Dudefax family, Josh here. That's right, I'm not on the podcast this week. I've been at Vacation Bible School. Not for me. I don't go. I just go and take pictures of all the kids that were there. Right. So, glad you're listening. Thanks for doing that. I'm actually going to share a little thought at the very end on today's topic, so we hope you'll linger around until then. I just wanted to say thank you for listening to the podcast, for watching us on YouTube, listening on Spotify, Google, Apple, wherever you are. Just want to ask that you continue to like, comment, share, subscribe, smoke signal, whatever you got to do to help us get the word out. We're really excited about the future of the podcast, some of the topics that are coming up, and we want as many people as possible to hear it, because at the end of the day, although we're joking around, although we're going to have fun, although I'm probably going to yell at my dog for barking, it's all about Jesus and making His name known and celebrating who He is. So we hope that you'll share the podcast with your friends and continue listening. Thanks for sticking around for part number 2. I think you're really going to enjoy it, and I'll be back with you guys next week. Happy listening.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Dudefax podcast. This is part 2. We want you to stick around. There's going to be some good discussion, but it's also going to be very humorous as Ryan and I are holding down the fort tonight, or today, whenever you're listening to this. We record this at night. But we want to talk a little bit about worldview and getting outside our bubble. And I promised, if you listen to the last session, the first part of this, that I was going to show you a video, and we're going to get to that in just a second, but I want to set up what we're going to talk about here. But we don't want this to be a part 2 to our missions podcast that we did a while back. We talked about missions, and we'll talk a little bit about missions, but it's not just missions that expands our worldview or gets us outside that bubble. But we wanted to use our shared experience of going to China in 2008 as an example of expanding our worldview and perspective. And so that's really the heart of what we want to get across. But to get into that, I want to talk first about biblical worldview. Scripture is very clear that to think wrongly about God is idolatry. Jeremiah 9:23 and 24 says, "Thus says the Lord, let not the wise man boast in his wisdom, let not the might man boast in his might, let not the rich man boast in his riches, but let him who boasts boast in this, that he understands and knows me, that I am the Lord who practices steadfast love, justice, and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight, declares the Lord." Proverbs 2:6 says, all wisdom comes from the Lord. So we know that wisdom comes from God. That is something, he is the source. He is all knowing. And so as we talk about having a biblical worldview, it's not just this book. It is the revelation of God, but it is God's wisdom, God's knowledge that He has given to us. Proverbs 9:10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. So the Lord gives us direction. He gives us guidance in His Word, through His commands, through Jesus' life, and the Great Commission. And so I think we understand biblical worldview. And so the heart of this isn't that we're going to sit here and just talk specifically about biblical worldview. I think we know and understand that we should operate with a biblical worldview. And so what that means is that we go to Scripture. We allow God's word to shape how we live. We not take our presuppositions into Scripture and our secular worldviews and try to make them compatible with Scripture, because this is going to lead to bad translation, false prophecy, flat earth, things like that. But with that said, it's important that we as Christians also get outside of our bubble. We not hide our heads in the sand. It's important that we get outside those norms, our comforts, not as a way to enjoy the riches of the world. That's not what we're talking about, but to understand how to love our world, to understand how to lead our world to Jesus and to share the gospel. That we grasp a true appreciation for the lostness of our world, and getting that, understanding that perspective, so that we have an urgent heart into bringing God's truth to a world that is dying and desperately needs it, because that's our mission, as we know from Scripture and as we know from Jesus Christ. So that's really the heart of what we want to talk about, is how do we do that as Christians, sort of develop that deeper perspective. We have a biblical worldview. Now, how do we develop that deeper perspective for our world so that we can be most effective for God's kingdom? And so as we talk about developing a grand perspective and getting outside of our bubble, what does that mean to you, Ryan? Like what are some ways that you see that we do that?
I think that the important thing to that for that, in my mind, is we need to understand that other cultures are different, and we need to approach them differently, and we can't just approach everybody like somebody who is the same as us, because the world is vast. There's lots of different, not only like cultures, but the things that make up that culture, but whether that being their history or their, just like their customs, things like that. And when we expand our view to think of that, when we're, when we're going out with the ultimate purpose of, spreading the gospel and sharing Jesus with the lost, when we think of that, it helps us to meet them on their level, instead of trying to going somewhere and expecting someone to meet us at our level. Because I feel like that is always going to fail. Most, 9 times out of 10, when you go to some strange place and you're the outsider, and you try to meet them, you try to bring them to your level, they're not going to be receptive to that. Yeah. And so, that part of expanding our worldview is going to make us more effective for the kingdom.
Yeah, absolutely. Because our world is so unique and diverse, and it's very easy to get into our little corner of it and think everybody thinks the same way. Everybody sees the world the same way. And even in our own cities or towns, there are varying worldviews and cultures right there. Like one part of town can see the world completely different than just 2 miles down the road. Another part of town, Clarksville, is that way. It's very diverse. And so that is part of it. So I am an Army chaplain, and one of the reasons that I enjoy talking about this is because of how Army chaplaincy has really expanded my perspective and enhanced my worldview. So I worked in the church for, 7 full years, but really even before that, over a decade, and enjoyed it. A lot of good things came from that, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, and absolutely had a blast serving God in that capacity and loving people in the church. Would do it again if God called me to it. But God called me out of that, sort of through a Jonah experience, which we can get into another time. But part of it was because I was comfortable. Like Jonah was comfortable where he was. He didn't want to go and have to do something uncomfortable. But I was comfortable, and God called me out of that bubble into the Army, which, even though it's still in the United States, very different culture, and obviously has sent me all around the world as well. But it was amazing how I went from being in that church bubble to the Army bubble, and being around people that desperately need Jesus, that are lost, a very dark place, a place that deals with life and death. Immediately I saw how people just right down the road from me, because the last church I served in was here. I mean, right down the road from an army post. How people right down the road from me think so differently and see the world so differently. And so my eyes were just open to that. And so we'll talk about this personally and from our experiences, but hit on some other things as well. But one of the ways that we did this, Ryan and I, in our time, in ministry together and also in Texas together, and expanding our perspective and worldview and understanding God's love and his grandness and the lostness of our world was when we went to China in 2008. We took this trip to China with our church in Texas, and there was about, 20, 25 of us that went on this trip. Yeah. And so 2008, to give you the setting, 2008, the summer of 2008 was actually the same time that the Summer Olympics were in Beijing, China. And so we landed in Beijing, and it was funny at the time because you land and everything around the airport and like within a mile or two of the Beijing airport looked immaculate. It was clean. It was beautiful. All the buildings were new. You saw the stadium for the Olympics. It was like, clearly this is what China wants the world to see whenever they broadcast the Olympics. And then as soon as you got out of that, it was garbage. Oh yeah. And I'm not meaning that to be a jerk, but that's just the best way I can describe it. It was run down. There was a lot of poverty. It stunk, trash, all that. And we'll talk, and we'll get into that a little bit. But Ryan and I, that first day, we were paired up at the hotel in a room, and we got to our Super 8 motel in China. And this is new to both of us. Neither one of us had been to China. We're halfway across the world. And we click on the TV, and we see something. This was our first sort of indoctrination to China, and we want to share this with you as I share this video. And you may have seen this. If so, just relive it with us. Imagine being in Beijing, China, turning on the TV, and this being the very first thing you see. So I'm going to bring this up on my screen. Disappear. Okay, maybe it disappeared. Hold on just a second. Let me bring it back real quick. I gotta find it. Because this is just too good. And if you are just listening to this right now, here's what I'm going to encourage you to do. It's okay, you can keep listening, but I'm going to encourage you at some point, go to YouTube, and at about 40 minutes into the podcast, just fast forward and get to this part because you need to watch this. All right, so let's try this again. I think I got it back up. Here we go. Best commercial ever.
I just want to say that the end where it says Cadbury chocolate and everything, we're in China, so that's all in Chinese. We have no idea what this says. And I believe it was also like it was like a newscast was talking about this, and like they were playing it kind of like in
that's right.
The background. And so like we just thought that they had a trained gorilla playing the drums.
Yeah,
Phil
I had
Collins in the
no
internet.
idea that this was a guy in a suit. I thought, for real, clearly Chinese gorillas are far superior to our
Yes.
gorillas because they can teach their gorillas to play drums.
And he was wearing like in-ears and everything. I was like, I didn't even think about that then, but I was watching that. I was like, man, that's really talented gorilla.
I know. I mean, they're teaching their gorillas to play drums to Phil Collins. I mean, we clearly are not the superior country I thought we were.
And I just want to say, for anyone who thinks that, like, oh, of course, that was a man in a suit, like, how could you not tell? Imagine being severely jet lagged, just
Yes.
exhausted. We had, like, it was almost a 24-hour flight to Beijing.
Yep.
And then we get to there, and we're just, we're totally out of it, and that's just the first thing you see with no context and no explanation.
And it was 2008.
Yes.
So you didn't have these smartphones readily available to where you could like see everything. I mean, they had Google and the internet and all that stuff, but it wasn't as common as it is now. I mean, you couldn't find answers as quickly.
Yep.
So it wasn't like we were going to our phones. Was this real? We're just seeing this, and it was a little TV.
Yeah, it was
from
a
what I
little, like,
remember.
tube TV. Like,
Yeah, like
super
straight out of
cruddy
1986.
quality. Yeah.
And so the quality wasn't that great. We just see a gorilla playing drums, and we're like, holy cow. Like, this is unbelievable. Like, where are we?
And I'm pretty sure we actually thought that was a gorilla playing drums until we like got back to the States.
I did until like 7 years later.
And you saw
I was
that,
like,
and you're
oh,
my
man,
gosh."
the dude in a suit. That's a ripoff. Like, dang. But, yeah, I thought China was really cool.
华都中华都朋友你好。
And
Yes.
China is really cool, but they would have been cooler had they
Yes,
had an actual
way
gorilla playing
cooler.
drums.
Yep, that would have made Beijing like Beijing awesome. All right. So that was our first experience. We do have a few pictures that I'd like to show, and so I'm going to share my screen again. You aren't going to see me for a second. That's okay. The pictures are much better. How's that?
Yeah.
Oh, there's the TV. So,
Yeah.
so this is our room.
Tiny TV.
There's the TV. So we weren't lying. There's my butt with some cargo shorts. So you can tell it was a long time ago.
That was the size of the TV I had all throughout college.
I'm staring out the window after probably seeing the gorilla and just thinking, like, what have I been doing with my life? Like, I can't play the drums that good, but this gorilla can. So unbelievable. Look at our reading lights there. Very, very nice.
Oh yeah. I want to say I don't know if you had the picture of it, but there was those mattresses were very thin, just like
yes.
a pad almost, and underneath it just hard wood.
Yep.
Like those bed frames were just solid wood.
But yet, that was probably the most comfortable bed we had the entire time we were
It
there.
really was.
Because we'll talk about that too. I like this picture on the wall up here. Just I don't know what it is,
Yeah,
but
I think it's crooked too.
you know, we in the States in our hotel rooms we had these giant pictures of just like different like views of cities and art and things like that. I don't know what that is.
I'm just still amazed that Super 8 was a thing in China.
Yeah. Was not as super as I was hoping.
No.
Oh yeah, I think that was in our room.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah,
Thank you for
we
not smoking in
we did not do that. Just in case you're wondering. I don't really know why that was a mug in China, but it
Yeah,
was.
a luchador. So this was like the continental breakfast basically that the Super 8 had.
That's right.
That we ate at the next morning that had some mystery biscuits filled with meat that were pretty good actually.
Yes.
And goat milk. So which was really funny because Brittany, one of the people that was with us, she was like, "Oh yes, some milk finally," because she didn't drink water. She hates a lot of different drinks, and so she was like, "Oh, some milk." And I knew it was goat milk before she was gonna drink it because I had tried it first, and I was just waiting for her, and she tasted it, and she's like, "Oh, this is sour."
Who knows how old it was too?
Yeah, that's true. I just imagine they milked it from a goat out back.
They probably did. Yeah. Just one they found behind the dumpster. Here you go. What was funny is they advertised that as a Western breakfast, and it was so not West. I mean, maybe Western China.
It was fried rice and
Like, this is not. I remember seeing that
good. I
and thinking,
like fried
man,
rice.
we're gonna get some eggs and bacon and like biscuits. No, not at all.
Not at all.
It was totally not. I mean, Western China maybe, but definitely not Western United States. Oh, there is. This was actually around the Olympic Village, right?
yeah.
Okay. Not sure what is that, a mouse doing shot put?
They had a bunch of like mascots for the Olympics that like I never saw anywhere except when we were in China. Like they weren't on any like, broadcasting for the Olympics. So, but they were all over stuff there. So I didn't. I don't understand really what they were.
Yep. But yeah, Ryan just hanging out with a mascot. Oh, there's Ryan at. This was in Beijing. What was that called?
Was this? So we went to the Forbidden City.
Yeah,
was
Forbidden
that what
City.
this was? Yeah.
Yes. Yep, that's the Forbidden City. That was a lot of fun. So they were amazed to see Americans, which I always thought was funny, especially if you had light hair.
Oh, if you were blonde headed, oh my gosh, you had people just all over you. It was crazy.
So I flew back separately from you guys because I had to get back a few days early, and when I was on a plane, my first flight was with all Chinese nationals, and I'm the only American on the entire flight. I had people taking pictures with me, like selfies, like I was a celebrity. I'm like, I'm nobody. Like, why are you taking pictures with me? But it was so funny.
Should have offered to sign something for him.
Yeah. Well, luckily there was a college student sitting next to me who she was Chinese but went to college in the States,
So
somewhere
she
in the
could translate a little bit
Northeast,
for
and
you.
she actually said, and it was men that were taking pictures with me, and she was like, yeah, they think you're very handsome. I was like, well, I don't know what to think about that, but all right.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
There is Ryan taking the bull
by the horns.
Literally.
Literally.
He did that.
I did that just so I could say that.
There's our group hanging out at the Forbidden City.
Oh yeah, the Forbidden City was so cool. There were so many things, just like historically Chinese there. It was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, this was fun because they had so many signs that they would translate into English, but the English was way off.
Oh yeah, this was one of my favorite ones.
You can almost hear that in an accent too. Speaking cell phone is strictly prohibited when thunderstorm. So great. Oh, there's us at a Walmart.
Yeah,
Just proof that Walmarts are
This is
everywhere.
the actual Walmart. This is when we were in Shenyang, but when we were in Beijing, we were walking around and found the Woo Mart.
Yes.
We thought was just like the Chinese version of Walmart, and then we actually found a Walmart in Shenyang.
Yeah. I thought the Walmart at first we would find the Wu-Tang Clan, but we did not.
Nope, just a whole roasted wiener dog
Yeah.
on a stick.
Yep. So that part of it is true. If your worldview thinks that they eat dogs, some do. Yes.
Some do. Yeah, we did
Unfortunately.
discuss that with our speaking partners there.
Yes. Not a lot of them don't as well. So you don't think that they all do, but there are some that do. But I'll share this since we're talking about Walmart, and we're talking about worldview and perspective. So we were in Walmart, and I walked up to the cashier, and before I got there, this Chinese man stopped me, and obviously he knew I was American because I'm white, I look different, and he said, "Are you from?" He spoke English. He said, "You from United States?" I said, "Yes," and he said, "Where?" And I said, "Texas." And he said, "Oh, I've been to New York." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I've been to New York too." And he said, "Texas, very violent there." And I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "You think so?" I mean, I don't think Texas is violent. And he said, "Yes, I see Texas Westerns." And his entire view of Texas came from Western movies.
Yeah.
So that was his perspective of
If
Texas.
that is your perspective of Texas, then you probably do think Texas is pretty violent.
I mean,
American movies are pretty violent.
he thought we were all riding around on horses with 6-shooters.
You know, partially true. You know, I grew up in Texas. There's a lot of people riding around on horses. It's not uncommon, but no, not that dangerous. Although I'm pretty sure some people in America also would think Texas is dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
I think just a bunch of crazy armed Texans out there.
I mean, we do think of Texas as having a lot of guns, but it's nothing like you see in Western
Kept
movies.
them in my house.
Yeah. But it was so funny how limited his worldview and perspective was of Texas because he's so used to his corner, and all he got of Texas was what he saw in Hollywood Western movies.
Well, yeah, it'd be the equivalent of if I went and saw, Jet Li in Fearless or something like that, or like watch Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I was like, oh, that's what China's like.
Yeah. I've seen Mulan.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it is.
Now, I do want to say that it was funny. I think it was maybe I know it was when we were in Beijing, but I don't know if it was when we were walking to the Wumar or not. But we'd walk down the street, and just a group of a bunch of white Americans in China, they stick out. So we're walking down the street, and you hear groups of people as we're walking by. They'll just be talking in Chinese, and then all of a sudden you'll hear like American or something slip in, that they don't have like a real word for. And every time they do that, I'll be like, it's nice to know that everyone's just talking about us.
Yep. We did. We stuck out like a sore thumb.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. Speaking of sticking out, you can see that Chinese man staring at me as I'm hanging on to. Public transportation was so gross there. We already talked about the lines trying to get on the bus.
Oh, yeah.
I was sitting down one time, and we were packed into a bus like sardines, and some Chinese lady stood right in front of me, grabbed the pole, and just had a whole pit of armpit hair in my face.
And I don't know if they use a lot of deodorant in China.
No.
I think they use a lot of more like natural smelling remedies that some people in America use, and it doesn't really work.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of BO floating around.
Definitely a lot of bow going around. Oh, there's me at the Great Wall. It was a little rainy and cloudy that day. We go all the way across the world to see the Great Wall of China, and our pictures were all cloudy.
I had one picture. I don't know if you have it, but it was basically when we had gotten up a little bit on the Great Wall.
Oh, that might be my last one.
Oh, but you look down and it's just clouds. It was.
Hi, I'm back.
But yeah, like also going up the Great Wall is a trek. It's
Yes, I will say this is the one thing that Hollywood got right. If you saw Kung Fu Panda, where he had to walk up the stairs,
yeah,
that is literally what you're doing on the Great Wall of China.
Yep.
Very steep stairs that go on forever.
And like the taller or the higher you got, the taller each step got. So you're getting to the point where they're like 1.5 2 foot steps. So like your legs are just burning after
It's a great
few
workout.
minutes walking on that.
I remember walking so far on that thing, just wanting to see if we could ever get to like a level part. And I'm wanting to say it had to have been at least a half a mile, but a half a mile up these stairs, steep stairs, was a workout. And it just felt like an eternity. You're just climbing like this mountain on the wall. And I remember getting all the way up to, that is cut out.
Oh, yep.
Just happened. Well, poop.
It's all right.
I'll have to get back in here.
It's still recording though.
Is it?
Yeah.
Let me get out and get back in. Yeah, it's done that a couple times.
Maybe when you get back in, it'll just start. The recording will start working. Just to make sure the audio is working.
Well, Riverside is just spinning.
Oh, that's good.
Come on.
Is there an internet issue on your laptop?
Yeah, I'm not sure what's been going on tonight. Well, still saying I'm not getting internet. All right, well, maybe I'm up now. There it goes.
This whole time it's recording, like it can see me, but it can't hear me because my audio is coming through the Rodecaster.
All right, go to studio. I am not using headphones.
Hey.
And it's recording again?
It never stopped.
Oh,
It's probably just going to be a couple minutes of me just by myself with no audio because my audio is on the mixer.
well, I'm not sure where it left off, but I will just say we walked all the way up to a very high point on the Great Wall of China, and I felt accomplished at first because it was such a great workout, but then I saw like a little old lady with a cart selling magnets, which I did buy one. And I thought, how does she get up here every day? Like this, 80-year-old woman can walk up these stairs probably with no problem and bring this cart.
So I remember walking up and there was like we got up basically like one section, and then there was like a big covered area when people walking around taking pictures and whatnot. Was she there at that first one? Okay, because that was the one that I stopped at, and you guys were like, "I'm gonna keep going." I was like, "Nope, I'm here." You guys picked me up on the way back. I was done.
That's awesome.
My thighs were burning after that day. The walk down was even worse.
I
almost fell multiple times, and I was like, I'm going to fall off the side of this mountain in China.
But man, so many great stories and memories from that trip, and we're going to talk about some that are funny, and then transition into some really that really shaped our worldview, and I think bursted that bubble for us. But we talked about this one, I think, back during the missions podcast, and that is when me and you, and not the Josh of this podcast, but a different Josh, and Brittany had to take a cab from the Forbidden City back to our Super 8 motel in China. Now, Josh is a very big dude. He's a big Texas boy. What is he, like 6'5" maybe?
Yeah.
He's a very big, broad guy.
Farm-built guy.
All of us compared to the Chinese really are, except for Brittany. They're just big boys.
She fits right in.
Brittany was small. But we went, none of us speak a lick of Mandarin. All I had was a literal pocket translator thing that I was holding on to just in case I got into trouble. Somebody had translated on a Post-it note directions for the cab driver. Yeah. Basically, I think it said, take these people to the Super 8 motel at this address, or whatever it said. I'm not sure what it said. It could have said, kill them in a back alley. But anyways, I do know it had the number 8 on there. That was all I knew.
Yep.
So we hand that to the cab driver, and he sort of nods his head. And we get into the cab, and he just looks at us. And I remember him just going, whoa.
I think he said whoa, and then because Josh got in first, and then I got in, and when I got in, he was like, whoa.
His perspective was blown away. We burst his bubble. Well, so he starts driving us. We have no idea where we are, how to navigate.
Nope.
And after a few miles, we're driving down all these little tiny roads and dark alleys. We get to an alley that had a door that had a number 8
it was
drawn
an address number 8
on the door
or something. Yeah.
And he stops and he looks at us and motions for us to get out. And I'm like, no, wait a second. This isn't where we're supposed to be. And of course, he doesn't understand us. Well, he gets out of the car and he opens the back door and he starts trying to kick you guys out. And I think Brittany may have gotten out of the car at that time.
No.
Or almost.
He tried to pull her out.
Oh, yes.
So we were, and it was just the biggest commotion. Did we end up getting out there and walking, or did we get him to finally take us to?
We got him to finally take us.
Okay.
So I yelled at Brittany, get back in the car. And she got back in, and I had my little pocket translator, and I found the word for hotel.
Yeah.
And I pointed to it, and I pointed to that, and then I pointed to the 8.
To the 8, yeah.
And I think a light bulb finally clicked.
He's like, oh.
And he was like, oh. And he got back in, and he drove us another 2 miles
yeah, if
to
I
the
remember
hotel.
correctly, it wasn't that far, but it was definitely a different area than we were. And through back alley streets.
Oh, yeah.
With almost no room for this car. I thought multiple times we were going to clip either a person or just the walls.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Or a dog, which would become food for somebody.
And he's driving really fast down these alleys, too.
He was.
Incredibly.
But I remember having a fleeting thought at one point that if he kicks us out, like, we might as well become Chinese. We're dead. Like how are we ever going to get back? It's not like we had the cell phone technology. We had cell phones, but they didn't work over there.
No, yeah.
So who are we going to call?
I didn't pay for a national roaming plan.
Yeah, none of us speak the language. We're screwed.
Yeah.
And luckily, a light bulb clicked, and he got us to the right place.
Yeah.
And I was like, whew.
And so I couldn't, because there was one point we walked from somewhere, but I think that was like before we got in the cab. We were just kind of walking around and like, checking out China a little bit. And I just remember Floyd Sr. walking around with us and just saying some of the funniest things about China. His no habla comment is still one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, and who was it that he told that to?
I don't remember.
It's like a gate guard or something.
Yeah, something like that. We were walking around. It's like no habla.
Yeah, and you have to know the Ingrams too. We love them, but they're originally from Mississippi, but they very much embrace the Texas culture. Very Southern American to the core, and you're bringing them out of Southern America to China.
Yeah.
And so they have experience with Spanish because we have a lot of Spanish speaking in Texas and in the United States. And we were trying to get into a building or into a gate, and there's this gate guard security there who's obviously speaking Mandarin. We don't speak it.
Yep.
And he's yelling something in Mandarin to us, and Floyd Sr. was like, no habla, which is Spanish, if you didn't know that. And
I'm pretty sure he was telling us like we couldn't be there, like we need to leave.
And he was saying, he might as well have been.
We're gonna get arrested for speaking Spanish to a Chinese guard.
He might as well have been saying this.
Buongiorno.
Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of what it was like.
saying that to someone who speaks, African,
Yeah.
like Nigerian or something.
So we all stayed in this apartment, and in that apartment, I mean, I don't even remember what floor we were on, but we were high up.
Oh yeah,
like 10th floor or something. Yeah. And there was like 12 of us in this apartment. Ryan and I slept on an inflatable bed on a hardwood floor
that I don't think held air one night the entire time we were there.
We woke up every single morning on a flat bed on a hard floor, and it was very cold. And there was one bathroom in this apartment.
Yep.
And oh, by the way, we all 12 shared the bathroom, so the shower and the toilet. The bathroom wasn't very big.
Nope.
Also, you cannot flush the toilet in China.
You can't flush paper.
Or you can't flush paper.
Yeah. You can flush the toilet.
Yeah, you can flush your pee and your poop, but no paper. So you had to put the paper in a trash can, which was right next to the toilet. And the problem with that is, with 12 people, over the course of a week, it filled up rather quickly, and so it stunk. Because we all had to go number 2, and release ourselves. And we didn't want to go into that bathroom to shower or to use the bathroom. So the guys specifically started opting for peeing in empty, I believe they were Gatorade bottles.
Yes.
And
I don't think I was one of these guys, but
I'm ashamed to say I think I did it one time because I was so desperate. And
somebody was taking a shower or something.
Yeah,
like,
somebody was in the shower for like 45 minutes using that little dribbling shower. And I was like, I got to go. So I went into a bottle, and I remember asking a couple of the guys, all right, what are we doing now that we peed in a bottle? Are we just leaving this like in the corner of the room? And they're like, no, we're just pouring it out the window.
Yeah.
They were literally pouring the pee out of the window from like 10 feet in the air of this high-rise building. And so pee was just hitting the ground. I don't know if anybody ever got hit, but that I think was the most American thing we could have possibly done.
Yeah, I definitely think so.
It's like all these people are like, yeah, those are Americans.
Well, there was one particular street that we walked by that probably wouldn't have stuck out much. I don't know if you remember. There was when we first got there was like a food almost like it seemed like a farmer's market type thing. Like people would just come in from the countryside and were like selling food, like vegetables and fruit and stuff on the street. And there was like a whole street that was just covered with vendors. And then they all left, but they left a bunch of rotten food just like sitting on the sides of the street. So like as time progressed, while we were there, it just stunk worse and worse.
I think
like,
I remember that.
There was like a mall or something that was like several blocks down that like we had to walk past this to get to theirs. And we ate there. We went there quite a bit because we would get like KFC or Pizza Hut or something like that.
We wanted our American food, which it doesn't taste the same. Just in case you're wondering,
it doesn't. KFC actually might be mildly better. But yeah, that street just got to the point where I had to hold my breath every time we walked by that way. I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. It's so stinky.
I actually got up to run a couple of mornings, and yeah, I would run by like stinky trash, and I'd be jogging, listening to my music, and then just smell like nastiness, and I was like, oh. And then like 5 feet away, you see all these older Chinese people doing like Tai Chi in the morning.
Yeah,
it's like, how can they do this right next to this trash? Like, I just that doesn't seem like that'd be very like Zen or whatever they were going for. Because I couldn't stand it. But it's funny when we talk about food. There was some great food there.
Oh yeah.
And I remember, like you said, the exchange rate for us worked out really well in our favor, and so things were cheap. I remember going to a dumpling restaurant and just buying like a whole tray of Chinese dumplings, and it was literally like $1.
Oh yeah.
And there was like 4 of us that went with 2 college students, 2 local Chinese college students, and oh my goodness, just the amount of food that we ate, and they were shocked at the fact that like we ate as much as we did.
So we like ordered like they had pork, beef, seafood, like 3 different options or something.
Yeah.
Like that. And so we got like one of each and like a double of like one of the other ones. And then after we got done with that round, we were like, okay, give us some more. And I think we went like 2 or 3 more rounds after that.
Yeah.
And the entire time, so this place didn't have sodas like a normal American restaurant would have, but it was above a hotel that had sodas in the lobby. So the people at this restaurant were going down to the hotel, getting us Sprites out of the hotel lobby and bringing them back up. So we just had like piles of, and they're dirt cheap. So like I think I drank like 4 or 5 myself.
I think
cans
I did
of
too.
Sprite, and so we just had piles of cans of Sprite and then empty baskets from the dumplings, and it was just the most American looking thing.
And I think the entire meal was like $12.
Yeah, it was really cheap.
I mean, we were like high rollers. I mean, we're just sitting here like, we're some swanky like high rolling Americans just eating all this food.
And that was delicious. That was the first time I had ever had Chinese dumplings, steamed dumplings, and it was it was amazing.
Yes, in China.
Yeah,
too,
I never went
awesome.
back. I've eaten them many times since.
Didn't you eat a fish eyeball while we were there?
So I took a bite of a fish head.
Oh, yeah.
So like, because we did when we were in Beijing, we did like a tourist kind of tour thing that involved us going to the Great Wall, and then we went to, I think it was like a jade factory. It seemed like a sweatshop.
Oh yeah.
They walked us through there.
We literally saw the Chinese sweatshops.
Yeah, we walked us through there, and then like at the end of that was like, oh, you get a meal's the part of it, and there was a whole cooked fish, like fried fish with the head on still. So
yeah,
I
with
took
the
a bite
eyeball
of the,
looking at you.
Yep.
Apparently, it's good luck to eat the eyeball.
Yeah.
I think I remember.
Yeah.
And Ryan was the only one brave enough to do it. So.
Yeah. One of the many times that I've ate a gross thing.
Do you feel like you had luck after that?
I feel like I did, yeah.
Okay, so
Pretty
maybe
lucky
there's
time.
something to it. But yeah, so many great stories. And if you're wondering, like, why did we go to China? Like, what was the reason for it? And how did that shape our perspective? Well, we went there really to do kingdom work. And you have to be strategic when you do that over there. And so we were able to partner with some college students, meet some college students, and hang out with them, talk to them, develop a relationship with them. And to me, that blew me away as well. Just one, talking to educated Chinese people but yet seeing how limited their worldview and perspectives were, and knowing how ours were that way as well. There's this Chinese proverb that actually says, if you want to know what water is, don't ask the fish. And, meaning that, we obviously see water as something that gives life, but fish see it as, this is home for me.
Right.
And sometimes we can get so caught up in where we live that we don't even understand fully the magnitude of where we live and the opportunities that we have. And, we just see it very one-dimensionally. And that was clearly, I think, something that God spoke into me as we went there, of just expanding how great the world is, our great big round world, but how populated the world was as well. Because we went to the top of that apartment building.
Yep.
And I remember going to the top of it and just staring off into the distance and just seeing apartment buildings, high-rise apartment buildings for as far as my eyes could see. And we're up, this is probably like 15 stories or so. We're up on top of it, so we can see pretty far, miles and miles and miles. And it's just miles of apartment buildings. And Shenyang, I don't remember, is it like the 8th largest city in China or something like that? Or actually, I think it may be way less than that. But it had like over 1 million people there in Shenyang.
And it's still pretty small, and it's northern China, and really like right next to Shenyang is basically like, if you get to the edge of the city, which I did by accident on a bus with one other person. We got there, and it's just like, it looks like a barren wasteland out that way. But like the other way, like the city is just there's so many people compacted into this area, and it's just insane. And that was like a relatively small city for China, and they had like a university and like big like shopping areas and stuff. Like it wasn't like a small town.
Yeah,
it was still like a city that you would think of a big city here.
Yeah, absolutely. It just blew me away, like how large the city was for being not even one of their biggest cities, but also, again, just seeing those apartment buildings, and I'm thinking, there's apartment buildings as far as I could see, knowing those are all filled with thousands upon thousands of people. God really gave me an appreciation being up there about the amount of people that were in China. Of course, we know China's the most populated country. I think India has just passed it actually now.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, just recently, like this year or last year. But China is does have a lot of people, a lot more than the United States does. But it blew me away how many people were there and lived there, but also how many of those people don't know Christ.
Yeah.
Because we know that it is obviously a communist country. It's not impossible to worship God there. Not even as restrictive as we thought.
That was one of the surprising things, because we walked by like a Christian bookstore.
Yeah.
In China, and it's like the Christianity is not outlawed in China, but like free, unrestricted Christianity is. And so like it's like okay, you can believe this, but it has to be like the sanitized version that the government allows.
Yeah. There's no separation of church and state there. It is very much the state oversees the church.
Yep.
And so you have to worship in accordance with how the state tells you. So obviously, like you said, sanitized. But yeah, technically there are elements of worship that can occur there. And then they do have churches that are more free from state control, but it's only for people that are not Chinese nationals.
Right.
Because we went to a church that was run by mostly Africans. I think had some Australians and others.
Yeah.
But you had to show your passport to get into.
Yep. You had to prove that you were not a Chinese citizen. Yep.
Yeah, to be able to get into it. And so that was very eye-opening. In fact, at that Christian bookstore, I bought a actually, it obviously couldn't read anything. Mm-hmm. I was just trying to find anything that I recognized. And the one book that I recognized on the shelf was Rick Warren's Purpose-Driven Life, because it had a very distinctive cover. And of course, it's in Mandarin, and I thought, I'm going to buy this. And I had the opportunity to speak to 2 college students in particular. They were college seniors, what we would know as college seniors. They were going to get married. They were engaged. Very smart, asked me a lot of good questions, but I ended up buying that book for them. But what blew me away was a conversation that I had with them, because one of the first conversations when we began talking is they asked me what I did, and I told them that I was a youth minister, and they had no idea what that was.
Yep.
And I had to explain it. I was like, well, I work in a church with teenagers and, teach them about my faith, Christianity. And they were like, oh, okay. And they still didn't understand, but I think at least knew the term Christianity.
Right.
And we got on a bus to take a trip one day. I think it was the day that we went and ate all the dumplings. And he taps me on the shoulder and he said, tell me all about Christianity.
Yeah.
And so it was about a 45-minute bus ride, but I had to give him a synopsis of the entire Bible in 45 minutes. And I was not prepared for that, to be honest, but I did the best that I could, talking about how creation and ultimately led to Jesus and him coming to earth and dying for our sins. And so it was an awesome opportunity to share the gospel with them. But what blew me away is they had never heard that, ever. Mm-hmm. And here we are in a metropolitan city with millions of people, educated people at a university there. And by educated, I mean they were about to graduate. So college degree, metropolitan city. You would think these people have an understanding, or at least a worldview where they understand culture and religion enough. Right. Even if it's not their religion or not one that they practice or that's commonly practiced in China. But they had no idea. It was the first time that they had heard that. And I remember thinking before that people that haven't really heard the name Jesus, or people that are out in remote areas of the world, that people that are on islands that people never go to, or that you can only get to by boat, or really deep parts of Africa where people don't get to, tribes that we don't really interact with because they're violent, or places in Siberia. Those are my thoughts. Those are the places where the gospel, and I think for a lot of us, that's what we think, because, the World Wide Web, TV, radio, all that out there. Right. But here we are, people in a metropolitan city in the biggest country in the world have never heard the gospel. And that, I think more than anything, shaped a big part of just my worldly perspective, rocked my bubble, if you will, thinking, wow,
Yeah, I think it's something we take for granted, that when we think of America, you think of even the most non-Christian areas of America, those people have heard about Jesus and Christianity before. They at least have some cursory knowledge. But when you go to a place where somebody's never even heard that before, and it's something completely new to them, that is eye-opening and worldview changing of a thing to experience, and it did that. It definitely did that for me as well. And I think one of the beautiful things being there is what we were essentially just English conversation partners with these students who were trying to learn English and learn how to speak English better, because English is a language that's used a lot in the business world and is very important in a lot of countries for that purpose. So we were there trying to help them become better at that, and just talking. And I think that was the most beautiful thing is things like that, where just generally talking and telling somebody about what you do can lead into an actual presentation of the gospel to them. And I think being I was 17 at the time we went, and that for me was a really big change in the way that I viewed evangelism and doing outreach and talking to people. It became more of hey, just go out and talk to people and let things happen naturally. If God is important in your life, He's going to come up naturally in the way you talk to people. And that was a a beautiful thing that kind of led into, because of the restrictions that we had and what we could do there, it kind of like showed a better way you can connect with people and understand each other better by talking to them instead of just talking at them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that was the same for me as well, going there. Not that I would discredit anyone who tries to find a way to sort of have a memorized way of being able to share the gospel effectively. It should never be a spiel or a sales pitch,
Right.
ever. I'm not a fan of that. But if it helps you to sort of learn certain verses that help you share the gospel effectively, sure, absolutely. But yeah, organically is really the way to go. Sharing your story and what Jesus has done in your life, that is the most impactful. I've seen the same thing as I've transitioned into, really being a missionary in the Army, is that, the Army culture isn't communist, but like a lot of workplaces, talks about, obviously not harassing your coworkers, whether it be sexually or, verbal abuse. And one of those things is, not pushing your faith on your coworkers.
Right.
It's not that we can't talk about our faith openly. We can worship freely. It's just not pushing it on to somebody else. And that's where we have to be strategic. But I also think we have to really look at how Jesus did it. Because I don't think Jesus would go into a workplace and necessarily push it on to somebody. Because I think Jesus would let it happen organically. And it's about just showing people what's most important in your life, loving them, and trusting that God's going to give you opportunity to share the gospel and share it organically. Because he absolutely will. Obviously, China did that for us. It was one of those things that just enhanced our worldview. And again, it's not just mission trips that do this. There's a lot of things that I think can sort of wake us up to realities, even within our own city. And it's not just experiences necessarily. I think there's a lot of things that can help shape that worldview. Obviously, again, the Bible giving us that biblical worldview, but it's our work in God's kingdom and the things that he's called us to, and being willing to step outside that bubble and being willing to do something maybe that's uncomfortable. I can remember being at First Baptist and helping out in the ministry for the homeless. We'd have the night at the inn, and talking to homeless people who some had college degrees, and oh, by the way, some of them wanted to be homeless. And here these were people even in our own city, and I just hadn't spent the time to sit and talk to them about why they decide to do what they do. And so things like that, it's doing something a little uncomfortable, following the Spirit's leading, to really help shape your worldview and understand the people around you so that you can love them most effectively, bring Jesus to them most effectively. What are some other ways maybe that you feel like God has helped shape your worldview, whether it be experiences or conversations or other places?
I think, I talked earlier about, meeting people, where they're at, and not expecting them to come to me, essentially, or come to my level to understand things. And when we went to Puerto Rico multiple times, we went with First Baptist, and then I went again with Community Life and Josh again, and there was a lot of people that we worked with that didn't speak any English. And, again, being like in China, that blocker is hard to get over sometimes if you don't have somebody that can translate for you. But one thing we did in Puerto Rico a lot was play basketball, and kids in Puerto Rico love basketball. And just being able to be there and be with them and connect over non-verbally over something that we have a mutual connection with, I think that kind of opened up a way to me to where, when you're meeting people where they're at, it's also about finding commonality with them and I think we did a lot of work. You know, we obviously didn't speak English, but we were able to open up avenues for people that were working with us that did speak Spanish and that could communicate with these kids, and I think that really helped kind of change the way I approach things when I'm talking to people. I try to come to people and be like, hey, even people I speak the same language with, I'm like, I want to know what makes you tick, and I want to know what commonalities we have. And if there are differences, I genuinely take interest in how they think, what they think, and what they want to tell me. Because if they're going to care, they need to know that you care.
Yeah.
And so I think that was, the two of the biggest things of changing my worldview was dealing with people that don't speak the same language as me and have completely different cultures than me. But it's good to have that because it's even affected the way that I interact with people locally here in the States.
Absolutely. And it, not only is it different cultures, but it's people who just think differently than you, even if we're the same culture. And so that can mean people that think different than us politically, or people that think different than us about, a variety of things or issues, even people of different faiths, and why they, what makes them tick as a Muslim or as, a Jewish believer or a Mormon. And that's been one of the cool things actually about Army chaplaincy is I've been able to work with chaplains of different faiths and really sort of understand their worldviews a little bit better. We're going to disagree, and that doesn't mean I change things, as far as what I convictionally believe and what God has led me to understand through his word and what he leads me to, but it doesn't mean that I have to be a jerk, or it doesn't mean that I have to be so prideful in that I don't take time to understand them and where they're coming from and love them and hear them and listen to them. It's okay to sit down with somebody that you disagree with and have coffee so that you can come to an understanding. It's that love and that's that understanding that I think is ultimately going to help us more effectively lead people to Jesus and for people to see him for who he is. And I think those are ways that can again expand our worldview, get us outside our bubble, is not being afraid to have those conversations with people who think differently. Jokingly, we've been talking about the flat earth stuff and having conversations with people, granted via TikTok and Instagram, which is not the most ideal online, obviously. But to be honest, it's been a little interesting to me. Even though I joke about some of these wild and wacky views, it's interesting to me, and I find myself wanting to know more. And I did ask the question to Jay, the guy who was commenting so much on Flat Earth. I said, why does it matter?
Right.
And ultimately, at the end of the day, why does this issue matter? I understand you believe it. I understand there's a lot of weird things that you believe about it. But why does it matter? And unfortunately, he never really answered that question. Because that to me was the biggest thing that I wanted to understand. Like, why is it so important to get this issue right? And I think it's worth having some of those conversations with people that disagree with you. Like, why does this matter so much in your life? Because when we just sort of dismiss it as that's stupid and we stomp on it, it's something that is very crucial to them. And I think we automatically close a door to be able to share love and truth with them, even if we still disagree with why it matters to them.
Right.
If we just simply wipe it away and say we don't care, like you said, then they're not going to care about what we care about.
Right.
So I think that's important.
Yeah. And I think that when dealing with people who differ from you, it's showing them that you love and that you care. And as long as they walk away with that, regardless if you end up agreeing on anything or not, that's what's important, because somewhere down the line, that could be used, by God to open up a door to them. And
Absolutely.
You don't know when that could happen or who it could happen with. It could be somebody else.
Yep.
They could be like, hey, this one person who said they were Christian showed they cared about me, so I'm going to be more receptive to this other person later down the line. You never know what you're gonna affect.
That's right. Well, this has been good stuff. I mean, we could continue talking, but We probably need to wrap up, and it looks like Josh is not going to make it. So sorry, you're not going to see Josh's... Dang, man. You're not going to see Josh's face on this podcast unless he inserts it later.
Soda pop. Big fresh can of soda pop.
Ryan's going to finish his dang soda, and we're going to finish this podcast. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully our reminiscing of our China trip maybe helped enhance your worldview a little bit. Maybe even some presuppositions that you had coming into this podcast about the world, China, or whatever. You thought, wow, okay, that's a little bit different than I thought. If so, great. That's really the goal of this, is just that we continue to be lifelong learners. Obviously that wisdom comes from God, but I think God is continually teaching us every single day, and we have to be open to it and realize we don't know it all, because there are things daily that I'm like, okay, I didn't know that. I didn't fully understand that, and that's okay. What is it that Socrates said, like, about true knowledge is knowing that you know nothing, or something like that? I don't remember. I'm probably getting that wrong. I just remember in Bill and Ted them saying that. Wild Stallions, by the way. Bill and Ted, they said that, and they're like, "That's us, dude." So yes, that's where we will end. Bill and Ted reference. Thank you for joining us, and we hope that you guys have a fantastic week, and keep learning.
Hey everybody, Josh here with my dog Harley. This is the dog that you hear barking in the background of a lot of our episodes. Well, until Jeff, Ryan, and myself started recording in the same room at Jeff's house. He has a dog, but his dog is nice and not weird and doesn't bark at everything. But Harley's nice. He really is. I give him a hard time because he's from Atlanta. And, that's just such a different world down there. In fact, when we got him, you could tell that he had been hardened by, that kind of life. And being raised in that atmosphere had kind of made him street hard, like thug life. And so when we got him, he was a COVID purchase, which, we're doubting now. But when we got him, we brought him to southern Middle Tennessee, where we lived in Shelbyville at the time. I want you to still be able to see him. Let's see if I can. There we go. Look at that sweet puppy. We were living in Shelbyville, and much slower pace of life than Atlanta, and people were nicer, and things like that. So it took him a bit to adjust, and he had a change of worldview, right? Just going from Atlanta to Shelbyville, or Chevel, depending on how long you've lived in the area. So, and that's kind of what you talked about on the podcast a little bit, just how we deal with when we're challenged with people of a different worldview, and how we should maybe broaden our worldview a little bit, and definitely adopt more of a biblical worldview. And so I wanted to share just one thing that I've experienced in some of the travels I've had. I've definitely been blessed to have opportunity to travel a few different places, and kind of local international trips to Jamaica, Dominican Republic, and Puerto Rico. All, I promise, mission trips. We did serve the Lord there in each of those countries. And I know Puerto Rico's not a country. It's an unincorporated territory of the U.S. I get that. So I've been there, and then I've had the opportunity to be in several African countries on trips. I've been to Malawi and Ethiopia, Rwanda, and Uganda. And one of the things that hits me every time I've been to those countries, because I've been to each one except Jamaica and Malawi multiple times, is how differently Christians in those contexts interact with each other. Not just with their society, but with each other, because it's so different than what we experience here in the U.S., especially in the southern United States. In so many of those places, they're meeting in maybe, he might bark, they're meeting in makeshift facilities. no air conditioning, maybe dirt floor, just depending on where you are and what the situation is. But one thing that they all had in common is that they love each other really well. The believers we were around were selfless, giving, hospitable, welcoming, especially to strangers, people they didn't know, just kind of busting in on their church service. And they live a much more communal type of lifestyle. And here in the U.S., we live an individualistic lifestyle, and we're very isolated because of how our culture operates. And that's one of those things that I wish we could kind of understand better as a church, as Christians, how to love each other in a way that we see in some other places. And I do wonder if some of it is because we've got it so good here, right? We've got the freedom, we've got the resources. It's easy to go to church. It's easy to be a Christian, but it's just about us, and it's not so much about the community we're a part of. I know that may not be true for every church, but I feel like the majority of churches, especially in the Southeast, are kind of like that. You just don't see that really anywhere else in the world except for maybe some European countries or where the church might be underground. But I'll tell you, even where the church is underground, the type of community they have with each other is real. And they really generally love each other as Jesus loved us, which is what he told us to do. Love one another as I have loved you. And I don't think we really experience that here in the States. And I wish we had a greater biblical understanding of that, a larger biblical worldview. And that's one way I've been challenged. It's something I'm praying for in my life, that I can be that way with other believers, and then maybe even lead other believers to fight for that too. So I'm glad you tuned in, because Jeff and I handle the editing responsibilities. I get to do this, lay on my kitchen floor with my dog that's no longer here. I was at VBS last week. I was the guy behind the camera taking all the pictures of the little kids. So yeah, creepy. All right, that's my dollop. I'll see you guys next week.